Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, September 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. and we are in regular session this evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging that here in Athens County, we live and work on land initially settled and developed by earlier people, particularly the Shawnee and the Osage, and those identified through cultures commonly known as the Adena, Hopewell, and Fort Ancient. This acknowledgement reminds us of the importance of honoring history, people, and the planet as we work to improve our city's legacy. Our first order of business is to establish quorum. 6 of 7 council members are present this evening, and we have quorum. The next item on our agenda are communications, and I have one. City Council has, just a minute. City Council has received a public notification about the Hooper Landing multifamily affordable housing community. And I'll go ahead and read that letter. The purpose of this letter is to apprise your office that South Creek Development LLC and Common Purpose Development Group LLC plan to develop a residential rental development located in or within a 1/2 mile radius of your political jurisdiction, and will submit an application to utilize the multifamily funding programs of the Ohio Housing Finance Agency for the development of this property. We propose a 55-unit affordable housing community at 111 Hooper Street, offering 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments to residents earning between 50% and 70% AMI to address Athens's critical housing shortage. The letter goes on to discuss the development team, and the programs to be utilized in the funding of this project. Any other council members have communications this evening? Seeing none. Director Stone, any communications?
No.
Auditor Hecht?
No report.
Treasurer? Okay. Our next item of business is our ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 78-25 is an ordinance amending the 2025 appropriation ordinance and ordinance 47-24 authorizing the local share of the United States Army Corps of Engineers Hocking River study, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
Thank you, President Crowell. This has been before council in committee, multiple readings, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I will add 3 minor points. This is a study to look at the feasibility of possibly returning the Hocking River channel and valley there to somewhat like it was before the rerouting in 1968. Environmental things today are a lot different than they were back then. Also to make it safer, including the dam area there. And fortunately, we have Director Stone here, who I will defer to for any clarification of what I've said or anything he'd like to add to that before we make a motion to approve.
The only thing I would clarify, Member Swank, is not to return it to the previous channel. I think Ohio University would probably have a bit of an issue with that, but to a better environmental condition. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I didn't mean we're going to bring out the bulldozers and hire everybody in town to.
Baker Center costs a lot.
Yeah, would make a couple holes at the golf course a little more challenging than they are today. With that said, I would move that the council pass 78-25.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions on this ordinance? Elected officials, anything to add? City administration, members of the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance has been approved. We now move on to ordinances for second reading. In some cases, a suspension of the rules may be necessary, but I will go ahead and read the title of each of these, and if the presiding committee member, council member needs to speak up on the ordinance, please do so. Ordinance 80-25 is an ordinance declaring properties located at 25 Central Avenue and 458 Richland Avenue no longer needed for a municipal purpose and authorizing the mayor to sell said properties to another political subdivision. This was introduced at first reading by Councilmember Reisner, and Member McCary has taken on the duties of the Finance and Personnel Committee for the next few weeks. Member McCary, anything to add here?
Nothing to add.
Okay, great.
You need to amend it.
Oh, do it. Okay.
Yeah.
The whole. Got it.
In
All right. Okay. Correction. We do need to. I'd like to make a motion to amend Section 2 of Ordinance 8025.
Second.
And the proposed text would be, the mayor is hereby authorized to sell said properties at 25 Central Avenue and 458 Richland Avenue to the Athens Metropolitan Housing Authority, another political subdivision, for the sum of $282,520. And that is now being corrected to $275,610, and that would be the correction for Section 2. Slight reduction in that amount, and that is the proposed amendment.
We have a motion and a second to amend Ordinance 80-25. Comments or questions on this amendment? Member Swank?
I actually had an amendment that I was going to propose, but it's quite different than what we just heard. At the last meeting, or maybe it was a committee meeting, or maybe it was both, we had a discussion about this, and this discussion centered on two topics. One was taking single-family homes off the market, and the other was the price proposed for selling this property. Unless I'm wrong, and I don't mean to speak for other council members or members of the administration or anybody else in this audience, but I think we are probably all in agreement that we need housing for everybody. And these two properties are currently homes to citizens that the Athens Metropolitan Housing Association services. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I, for one, am in favor of selling these houses and allowing those people to maintain and keep their homes. I think that would be a wonderful thing. Moving, as many of us know, if you've done it in the last 2 or 3 years, is a disruptive experience. It is one way to clean out your house, but it can add a little stress. And to think that we might want to remove these people or have these people move, just I really can't fathom that. The other topic, though, is one of great concern to me, and that is the price that has now been reduced by about $7,000 to sell these properties. Currently, the city or the county auditor has these properties appraised at about $335,000. $335,000. And the proposed amendment would be for $275,000, $60,000 less than the market value of those properties. So I did a little research over the weekend, and the 7 voting members of council and the homes they live today on the county auditor's website are valued at $2,172,000. 7 properties valued at $2,172,000. That is the amount on which we pay taxes to various municipalities. But when you go to the various search engines that tell you the market value of those properties, the market value of those properties are $2,595,000. A difference of $423,000. When you divide that by 7, a difference of $60,000 of property. Now, I'm just wondering, my fellow council members, how many of you would sell your property today for the auditor's appraised value? Anybody? Because I brought my checkbook. And if you want to sell it for the auditor's appraised property, I'll buy it right now and turn around and sell it. And in one case, make over $100,000 on the sale of that property, because that is the difference between what the auditor has it appraised at and what the fair market value is. I didn't see a hand go up. And I didn't expect to see a hand go up, because I don't think anybody would sell their property for far less than it's worth. But as council people, we take an oath, serve the Constitution, and protect the pocketbooks of our citizens here. We had an income tax levy on the ballot back in May, which was defeated by between 14 and 16%. And one of the reasons that I heard from multiple people is that you're not taking care of our money. Well, we had that unfortunate incident that cost us $722,000. We'll get $190 back from insurance. As a council, we voted last year to spend over $325,000 for a net to separate the OU driving range from the newly created soccer fields. And I voted for that, because if you've ever been hit by a golf ball, you know it could kill somebody. But that net may not be needed anymore, because the OU driving range has been closed since July 1st. And if you go to the website, they have no idea when they're going to reopen it, if they are going to reopen it.
Member Swank, if we could focus on the
And
amendment on
then
the table.
this is the amendment, and then for us to sit up, I'm explaining why I'm going to vote no, and hopefully my fellow council members will too. And then add to that, that we have a vote before us to spend $60,000 less, not spend, to accept $60,000 less than the market value of this property is an irresponsible use of taxpayers' dollars. And for that reason, I'm going to vote no, and I would encourage my other 5 council members to do the same.
Thank you, Member Swank. Additional comments on the amendment on the table. Member Spilness.
Yes, I mean, I have to say that I was a bit surprised to hear about that, so I think it would be helpful to hear the rationale, what happened that change was being proposed. So, and I think people from the Municipal Housing Authority and our representative over here, if you could explain what happened, we'd really like to hear about it.
Member McCary?
Thanks. I'd like to provide some additional information that the decrease in $6,910 comes from the mistakenly added closing costs that were originally in the total cost. So my notes indicate that the auditor's appraised value is just $275,610, and I'm wondering if anyone is able to confirm that or explain that discrepancy.
The auditors is what?
$275,610.
That's what I said, 275,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I left the 610 off.
No, just,
Yeah, because there are 3 parcels.
but there may be additional information from the administration on, or from the audience for that matter.
Right now, anybody on council would like to speak to the amendment on the table? Member Thomas.
What exactly is the amendment you're proposing?
That's my amendment.
Well, no,
and-
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
We're
This
not-
will have to
sorry.
come
Okay.
next. We're not
Okay.
speaking to any
That
other
I'm fine
amendments.
with. Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll get there after we get through this.
Okay.
Any other comments from Member Swank?
I inquired from the director of Athens Metropolitan Housing about this, and here's what I got. There was not an appraisal done. The price was just the sum of all of the tax appraised values. 25 Central is 2 parcels. I accidentally added 6,000 to the total because that would be the total price, including closing costs that I presented to my board of directors. So there has been no appraisal done on this property.
Thank you for that information. Would the city administration like to speak to this?
So Member Swank is correct in that the amount of money that the Athens Metropolitan Housing Authority Board approved was the previously mentioned amount of $282,520. And the reason for that was because of that included the closing costs that their executive director had presented to them. As of 9:30 this morning, the auditor's appraised value of those properties is $275,610. I think Member Swank mentioned that it was 330,000. I think Member Swank mentioned that or maybe meant that like the third-party real estate sites, end up rating it at that, not the auditor's site.
Right.
I do know that the auditor does a valuation. A county appraisal is different than an appraisal, that somebody would do based on market conditions. I can't speak for it super intelligently, but I think around every 3 years, the county goes and revalues property based on market conditions, and we'll look at sales, we'll look at recent sales and that sort of thing, as well as what has been improved on the property to determine what the county auditor's appraised value is. But to say that it is exact market conditions as of the day, that's probably not true. The only other point that I would clarify is regarding property taxes. The city of Athens itself gets very few revenue derived from property taxes. There's a small amount. I think it's 0.3 mils here inside the city, or 3 mils. It's not very much inside the city. It doesn't go to any other municipality. The majority of property taxes go to the county general fund and the school district. So insofar as property taxes go, I want to make sure I clarify that. But when I approached the Athens Metropolitan Housing Authority about this, we talked about the county the county auditor's appraised value as the sale price.
Thank you, Director Stone. Would anyone from the audience like to comment on the amendment, which is reducing the cost by the closing costs, as you've heard, from about 282 to 275, that's on the table at the moment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Member McCary's amendment to Ordinance 80-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, and the amendment is approved. I will just note that 8025 has been read for the second time. We were not voting on adopting that ordinance, just the amendment.
Well, that's the first time because it goes back to first.
You are correct. It has now been read for the first time with that amendment, so it'll be up for second reading in 2 weeks.
President Crowell?
Member Swank?
Since we're back at first reading, and even though the vote was 5-1, there's been no appraisal of this. And I would agree, Director Stone painted a very accurate picture that county auditor says one thing and the hypothetical search engines say another. I think it would be prudent for us to get an appraisal of this property. Now, I'm not sure what the proper way to do this would be, to offer an amendment pending an appraisal, or to make a motion to table. As our parliamentarian, I would defer to the law director as to the correct course of action, proposed action.
As far as making the amendment, I'm not sure what you would amend it to.
I would amend that any sale would be dependent upon or pending an independent appraisal, a certified appraiser here in the city of Athens.
But you don't know what that amount will be, so probably the best course would be to table it.
Okay,
in
so
order to get an appraisal.
President Crowell, I would move that we table this ordinance pending an independent appraisal by a certified appraiser here in the city of Athens. And I understand there's about 9 or 10 of them we could choose from.
Thank you, Member Swank. We have a motion on the table to table Ordinance 80-25. Any comments, or is there a second?
So,
I'm sorry, is that a
Just-
second?
no.
Then
I'm
just hold on, please.
I just
Is
have
there a
question.
second? Okay, seeing no second for Member Swank's amendment, 8025 is continuing under discussion. If anybody would like to additionally discuss. Member Spielness, did you have additional questions?
No, I was just curious about, who would pay for an appraisal and how would that work? And, so,
Right now, that has not been seconded, so we won't go there. Any other comments or questions on this ordinance? Member Swank.
Again, I'll have to defer to the law director on this. If an amendment were to be offered to this, and I don't know if it would be considered a deed restriction or a condition of sale, that would have to do with the payment of taxes. Even though the six of us were elected to protect the money of the citizens of Athens in city matters, as a resident of this school district, I feel a certain obligation to do that also, considering 62% of your tax bill in the city of Athens goes to the Athens City Schools. On the Far East Side, there are 6 properties that I were able to ascertain what they have paid in taxes all the way back to 2014. And at that point in time, the annual tax for those 6 properties was $11,268. I don't know what that translates into today's terms, but the second part of this email is that Athens Metropolitan Housing plans to take these 2 properties off the tax rolls too, and those taxes are approximately $5,000. Now, what I'm getting at is considering another amendment that would require them to continue to pay taxes. Because when you have 38% of the property in this town owned by tax-exempt entities, each little piece drives that percentage up, therefore putting the burden on those people who do pay taxes a much greater burden.
Well, I think the problem with that is that Service Safety Director Andy Stone negotiated with Athens Metropolitan Housing, and that would change the price completely if they were to have to pay a property tax. My understanding is there's a special provision in Ohio law that says that Metropolitan Housing Authority, if they apply, can be exempt from paying taxes. So I think that would be a very difficult situation because it changes the whole purchase price.
Well, there was no negotiation, as this email bears out. They gave us the price, and we've accepted it. So, but to your other point, I understand it. Therefore, I will not offer such a motion. It would just bog down the legal process.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on ordinance 80-25? Member Wood?
Just a point of clarity. I understood from earlier presentations that, in fact, they would still be paying taxes because they're a political subdivision, not a nonprofit.
I think it's the opposite. A nonprofit would have to pay taxes, but there's a special exemption in the law that says another political subdivision such as Athens Metropolitan Housing can apply and could be exempt. I think if you have a question, Attorney David Mott is in the audience tonight and may be able to help with that.
These billable hours?
Thank you, Mr. Mott.
Happy to answer any questions related to that or anything else. Regarding property taxes and metropolitan housing authorities, there is a special provision in the Ohio Revised Code that metropolitan housing authorities are exempt from paying property taxes. They have to make application just like anyone else does. They have to get a January 1st effective date following the purchase just like anyone else does, but they are exempt from paying property taxes.
Just important point of clarity. Who are you representing and why are you here?
David Mott, representing Athens Metropolitan Housing Authority. I've been their legal counsel for some time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did that satisfy your question, Member Wood?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mott. Appreciate it. Any other questions for Mr. Mott while he's here? Thank you. Yes, additional questions? Yes, Member Thomas.
I think I just wanted to clarify and remind everybody that Athens Metropolitan Housing has been handling these properties for some time now. There's really no change in what the use is. They've been altered to benefit to be accessible for the people living in them. They are available to adults with developmental disabilities, which we need a lot of in this area. And just to clarify who's getting to use these, and that they are in fact citizens of Athens City.
Thank you, Member Thomas. Anything additional? Okay, this has been read for the first time with the new amendment. Moving on, ordinance 82-25 is an ordinance amending certain sections of the Athens City Code, Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 9.10, Cutting Weeds, Section 9.01.05, costs, introduced by Councilmember McCary. Ordinance 83-25 is an ordinance amending Title IX, General Regulations, Chapter 9.01, Animals, Section 9.01.01E, Animals at Large, introduced by Councilmember McCary. Ordinance 84-25 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title VII, Traffic Code, Chapter 7.05, Parking Regulations, introduced by Councilmember Spielness. Ordinance 85-25 is an ordinance amending certain sections of the Athens City Code Title IX, General Regulations, Chapter 9.12, Streets and Sidewalks, Section 9.12.18, Materials on Street or Sidewalk, introduced by Councilmember Spielness. I will just note that when we had, did you have a?
Just one comment, and I've made
Please.
similar comments before, so maybe nobody agrees with me, but I still think, and I've asked some people in town, and they agree, that in a provision in the city code that would be referred to by contractors and people in charge of construction projects and maybe owners of buildings, the more clarity we can provide about what people have to do if they close a public sidewalk, it would just be really beneficial to make that language very clear so that people understand and maybe don't have to ask questions of the code enforcement office to try to decipher a pedestrian and vehicle maintenance of traffic plan and follow the manual on uniform traffic control devices. If what they have to do is provide an alternative walkway, I think it would just be a lot clearer to say so.
Thank you, Member Cloudfelter. I will just let you know that when I was acting mayor for the meeting 2 weeks ago, I did contact the city administration. I do have some answers for some of the questions that were brought up. One of the things that council wanted to know was what was meant by temporary closure and what was meant by an extended period. And this is what I have received. A temporary closure is any type of closure of the street, sidewalk, or alley for any duration of time. Sometimes the request is for something like a person using a lift to wash windows or to power wash. In those cases, as long as there is someone on the ground that can pause the work to let a person through, there is no need for a barricade and sign. The same is true when there is a temporary lane closure to unload equipment or furniture. The city would not require that they sign and barricade the sidewalk if they have people assigned to allow pedestrians through in between loads. So that's the temporary. An extended period of time is when the work would prevent a pedestrian from traversing through the area at all for the duration. At that point, they would need to have signage and a barricade and follow the MUTCD for setting up a pedestrian detour. Director Stone, do you have anything to add?
We deal with these a lot, the one thing that I would say, and so, we're mindful of not doing, I've done this for a long time, right? And like, there was a period of time where it was the Wild West and contractors would just come in and throw out a cone and close the street or close the sidewalk. And we've gotten a lot better. We went through a period of time where we rented signs to contractors because they wouldn't show up with signs. And finally, we've kind of got the community trained to, at least in local contractors, that they do have to do a permit. They do have to, do it properly. This gives us a little bit more teeth for, which is something I think we've seen that we need. But what we don't want to do is create conditions where somebody's trying to do something good for, like President Crowell mentioned, pressure washing or, window cleaning, where they can pause their work or unloading something and then require them a bunch of onerous requirements to go rent, signage if they can stop and, put the couch down and let somebody come through. And we want to draw a distinction between that and truly where somebody has to close something for an extended period of time, and then they would really need to install, a passageway around. So. That's kind of what we were getting at. If you want to be more explicit in how you write it, I'm certainly open to, if you want to put more language in it, we'll do what you said.
Member Clodfelter, did that help?
Yeah, and if people prefer the wording that Director Stone just mentioned, that's okay with me, to put in, did you say an alternate passageway? What was that?
Well, I mean, what I was describing is how we would interpret what is currently proposed. If you feel as though council needs to be more explicit and wants to take the language that Andrew said, or Andrew Chicky, my deputy, provided as how we're going to administer this and actually legislate it, I mean, sure. There's other ordinances that are 30 pages long where you describe exactly how we're going to administer something. So if you'd like to do that here, we'll follow instructions.
I guess that begs a question. Would there be any situations in which a sidewalk that usually has lots of people, pedestrians walking on it, could be closed, say, for 2 months and not have to provide some sort of alternate passageway?
Not with this legislation. Yeah. So, I mean, the elephant in the room here is the Lost Road project, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what we're talking about. And that's ultimately why we proposed this. Because right now, we don't have a mechanism to charge for a construction closure, right? And we're asking for that and asking for a little bit more explicit teeth in being able to deal with it. The Lost Road closure was supposed to be 2 months, then it went to 4 months, then it went to 6 months, and they're still screwing around trying to get that building fixed. Now, it's hard to repair old buildings. I mean, it is. It's really, I'm dealing with it at the Armory right now. It's probably the hardest project I've done since I've been here. So I don't, I'm not saying it's easy to repair old buildings, especially when you don't have an alley or anything that you can work from. Because that building fronts all on Court Street and Union Street. There's no frontage on any alley or no rearage, whatever you want to call it, on the back. So there's no way to access that building from anything other than Union Street and Court Street. And that is really what we're thinking about as we wrote this. And that's what all of you are thinking about as you're getting ready to vote on this. So if it's not the way that you would have us treat Lost Road, then change it. But I think this gives me the teeth that I would need to at least make it a little bit financially painful for someone to just extend and extend and extend and extend for something like that situation.
We're going to go to Member Wood first.
Okay.
I think the wording's fine. And I just want to say thank you for that visibility and that explainer. I think that background's really important. And I think that providing that really helps people understand what we're doing. And I think it also shows that the administration is cognizant of the issues going on. So I just want to say thank you for that background.
Member Spelness?
Yeah, in thinking about this and after that explanation, the fee only refers to, unless I'm missing something, for the temporary closure. So should we just say closure? So there's no fee for extended closure?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the separate ordinance we specify per day.
Yes, but since you made a difference between temporary and extended, just,
Everybody would require, everybody would require a permit. But whether or not we would require them to do all of the signage identified in the manual for uniform traffic control devices, chapter 6, that talks about, closures where you sign detours, and that would be really for where you can't simply move out of the way. So
no, I get all that.
right, but in all cases, there would be a fee.
Okay,
with this.
it's just that because it says temporary closure rather than any closure.
Yeah. So it's,
Is that-
it would be in all cases, there would be. a
Okay,
fee,
so
even if
that
it's
word
just a day.
temporary is not going to cause a problem.
Right.
Okay, just want to clarify that.
Member Swank?
Kind of tying these two together, Director Stone, the manual on uniform traffic control devices, that's a mouthful, talks about, or it says vehicle maintenance of traffic plan. Does that manual address when that plan is implemented? Having the plan sitting on a table and the date when it's implemented before maybe the first shovel goes in the ground, does it address that? And I think about this in the context of we do have one more possible building on Court Street that could see some significant renovation, and that is the old Athens Historical Society building. So does that manual address point of implementation?
So the manual is a document that is what governs signage and lane markings in Ohio. And it's based on a federal standard that has certain nuances for the state of Ohio based on the Ohio Revised Code. But by and large, it's a national standard, and that's the reason why a speed limit sign in Athens, Ohio, is the same as a speed limit sign in Chicago. The amount of time that a plan would have to be in place isn't necessarily addressed by it. I think that it just says if you're closing, specifically when you're getting into higher speed roadways, there's distances and warnings and information related to that. But it also has information in there governing pedestrian passageways for going around a work site. So it doesn't specifically talk about an amount of time that you got to notify in advance if that's what you're
Yes,
getting
sir.
at. Are you thinking like, hey, to be closed next Tuesday, and like a sign that sits out there that says, hey, this sidewalk is going to be closed next Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Well, that would be half of, the other half would be that the day the shovel goes in the ground, the alternate passageway is already in place. I guess I could ask this question: are you comfortable? And I'm not taking position one way or another. And I think this is great because we don't run into that again. But are you comfortable that this language in this would address that so that we don't get a situation like we had at Lostro, and a month into it, we finally get around to putting in a passageway?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I'm mindful of the fact that we got plenty of great local contractors and property owners that are just trying to do good stuff, right? And like fix their broken window, and they got to block the sidewalk in order to do that. And what I don't want to do is set conditions that, hey, sorry, you got to get a permit and you didn't get it 2 weeks out, and so therefore you can't fix your window, for 2 weeks. That's not what we want to do here. We're trying to be practical, but at the same time, we can't have what we've dealt with, up there, which is kind of after the fact.
Yeah, I think we're looking at more, and I think Solveig was talking about the same thing. The extended things are what
Right.
we're more concerned about,
Absolutely.
as opposed to the 1 or 2 hour, 1 or 2 day things.
And we get those a lot.
Yeah.
We really
Oh,
do.
yeah.
And a lot of times, you'll get this will be one that's on, like, for a traffic lane, like a crane, right? Most HVAC units in the central business district are on roofs. And when they get replaced, there's a crane that has to come and has to block a lane to lift it and set it up there. And that's an example of a short duration one where you could even have a flagger out there to let people through and then stop them. But it's something that we need to have a process in place because we are going to close the lane, we are going to close the sidewalk during it. So, but yeah, I think this gives us the language that we need.
Thank you.
Member Kleinfelder?
Just a quick comment that I agree with Member Spieldnes, that it would be clearer, this provision H here, would be clearer if the first use of the word temporary were struck, so that it would be no closure, blah, 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 you gotta have the traffic plan, and then it specifies a temporary closure, right, includes that, and then sidewalks closed for extended periods. Perhaps it would be helpful if it said must also be appropriately barricaded and signed, so it's clear that the provisions above apply to extended ones as well, plus there's more.
Director Stone, I would just say, I don't believe that there is a rush on this ordinance. I mean, I'm just saying that perhaps Member Clodfelter could come in 2 weeks with amended language.
Sure.
We could just sit up here and try to go back and forth and amend it at the dais, but I don't recommend that procedure. And so perhaps if in 2 weeks you could bring your amendments forward in writing, then we could present them, unless you feel like it's better to get this done.
Surely we can absolutely do that. I think the distinction there with the temporary closure is to try to draw a distinction between when you close a street for an event.
Right,
Because that's
permanently
purely in
done.
council's purview. This is really having to do with construction on an adjacent property and having to do something for safety reasons. That's an administrative nature, and so that's where that temporary comes from. But maybe it could be written better, and so we'll look at that.
Member Thomas.
I think just the clarity is how you read it, in that all closures are temporary, and that if they are not permanent, they are temporary. And that, so when it gets to the sidewalks closed for an extended period, it's still a temporary closure, but it's for an extended period of time. So it's really just semantics that we're talking about here. it's not that it's not a temporary closure. They're all temporary closures. And sidewalk, yeah, you could add an also in there, but the sidewalks closed or extended also have to be barricaded and signed, whereas a day temporary closure does not have to be barricaded and signed because it's of short nature. If that makes sense.
Yes.
It's really saying what I think we want to say, but it's just, it's engineer speak a little.
I think some excellent points made here today, Member Wood.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, not the lawyer advised, but I think removing it, in fact, creates more problems because then it suggests, that it only applies to, permanent closures, not temporary closures. So I actually think this is a solution, quote unquote, that would create more problems, as opposed to like temporary is intentional and has coverage, as Director Stone said, gives clear coverage for anything that isn't a permanent change. And yeah, we should just leave it and move on.
Okay, I think we've had some excellent discussion of this, and any council member that would like to propose very specific language to change this, I recommend that happen in 2 weeks.
I would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Member Klopfeld. Any other comments or questions on this ordinance from the public? Okay, moving on to ordinance 86-25. Is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title I, General Provisions, Chapter 1.03, Code Fees Established. This is introduced by all members of council. There was a robust discussion 2 weeks ago, and I've asked the Service Safety Director to comment on some of the proposal, the changes that were. Did you want to talk about the commerce program in specifically? I think there was mostly some questions from council about what that program entailed.
Sure, so I understand, as I looked at our notes from our discussion earlier, President Crowell, that council was interested in amending the contractor bag dollar amount that we had proposed from $10 to $15 a day, and I don't have any objection to that. And then wanted to pull out the single parking spaces for short-term deliveries, pick up and remove for further discussion, research and discussion. Frankly, I really don't have much opinion on that, although I would say that the idea was proposed by a business owner, and came to us. We didn't come up with it. Basically, they said that they have a need, and so they asked, and so we tried to work together with them to come up with a way that a particular business could do it, and certainly, but I don't, we don't feel particularly strongly about it one way or the other.
Quick question on that exact point.
Sure.
Would you, something that came up at council was, would you consider a 20-minute spot almost directly in front of a business to satisfy the need? Or are we talking about these 10 minutes short, Mayor, shorter than 20? 20 doesn't satisfy that need?
It could. I mean, let me explain something to council. I think it's important here. When we were approached back in 2017 or 18 about the 2-hour parking spaces which exist all over the uptown area. Well, hello, council. Let me start there first. I apologize for being late. My daughters won their volleyball game, though, so I'll leave it at that. There was conversation about putting these 10, 20-minute max parking spaces near places where people could get out, grab something quickly, and then get back on the road again, as opposed to having to circle around looking for an open space at a 2-hour parking metered space. We did that. Made several of those. At the end of the day, we ended up taking several of them away because they just weren't being used in the way that we were hoping they would be used. Some of them were not strategically placed either. One in particular was a 2-minute or a 20-minute parking space in front of a tattoo shop here in Athens, and I'm sure no one wants a 20-minute tattoo. So we had that learning moment as well, but now to create one that is specific for DoorDash or whoever to come and pick things up is different. I'm with the Service Safety Director on this one. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, just know that I'm a little bit surprised that a business would sit there and say, I want that parking space to be for pickup and delivery only, and in my location, that's kind of an interesting move to do that, given that most of the places that I can think of, up on Court Street or on Union, State, Washington, Carpenter, or not Carpenter, but those are places where someone is going to spend a fair amount of time in that parking space to go in shopping, if that's what they're doing, as opposed to it being a DoorDash pickup and delivery. I use that because that's the only pickup and delivery that I know of. But I'm old. So
Procedurally, council, I've gotten out of order a little bit here, but I thought that the city administration had some information that might answer questions from council before we get into our usual discussion. So again, thank you for that, Director Stone, but also that commerce validation program.
Yeah, I do have one more point to 8625, and specifically I would ask that you put the commerce validation program for the municipal garage back into this ordinance, and I can explain a little bit better how this will work. We're not asking for any kind of, our ability to extend any kind of discount program to anyone. All this would do is transfer the who pays for someone to park in the municipal garage from the person entering the garage and then leaving the garage to a particular business who's having an event to be able to basically prepay for their parking. And so they validate it. Here's an example I'll describe for you today. Just came across today. I don't know. It's this is not a set deal. So hopefully I'm not letting a cat out of a bag anywhere. But I'm talking with our folks at Blue Dot who are going to operate the armory when it's all said and done. They've been approached by a local area high school who's looking for prom locations, and parking is a concern for that. In this case, they could include in their prom fee or their cost associated with their prom ticket payment for the garage in advance, and then they would be validated, and then when they went and came, they wouldn't have to pay at the garage. They would just have a validated pass, and they'd swipe it, and then they'd be able to exit. And so the idea is basically giving the option to a business to be able to prepay and then pass that cost on in another setting versus have the individual customer go and do it. And that's the purpose of that commerce validation program. It's not to extend discounts. So hopefully that clarifies some of the concern about that. But I'd ask you to put that back in because ultimately we anticipate that new system will be available and ready to use on January 1st. And this ordinance goes into effect for next year, all of our fees for next year. And so it would be great if those two lined up.
Okay, so now we have additional information that answered some of the questions that council had at first reading. We now are at second reading. And Member Swank?
I'm going to have two amendments. I'll do the easy one first. I would like to move that we reinstate the language that Director Stone just talked about back into the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reinsert the commerce validation program, the language that was initially proposed, back into this ordinance. Questions and comments on this amendment? Anything to add from the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance has been amended and the commerce validation program language will be reinserted. Yes.
Second amendment, and I see where my granddaughter's been to you too. She's knocking everybody in town that's got a parking lot for that prom on April 18th. Temporary dumpsters, we talked about this last time. And one of the things that I think I heard an agreement up here, which would help in monitoring this as to what, kind of like Rumpke does. When they pick up your trash, they open up the thing and your trash has been gone, been taken away. We talked about when someone registers, pays the fee to get a dumpster, that they also would get a sticker which they would be responsible for displaying prominently on that dumpster so that we know when our code folks are out and about or maybe it's parked too far out in the road, we need to let somebody know that. That sticker would readily identify that as a legal or a not legal, or a registered or a not registered dumpster. And I was just thinking that we could add that to the, and I would certainly defer to the administration for the implementation of that program, but sure would be nice to have a sticker on those dumpsters.
we could figure that out.
So that,
It's not a bad idea. I mean, the other thing with the dumpsters, I think this is good because then we also recognize this isn't a dumpster that's put out possibly during move out or move in that people are throwing all kinds of things into that dumpster. And those are monitored. If that's there for a demo work and all of a sudden someone decides this is a good place to put my trash, it's not inconceivable for solid waste litter control to go by and open that bag up and find that this is an address from someone who lives 2 blocks down the street.
Yeah. So from your experience on council and now as mayor, your opinion probably wouldn't need to amend that. You could implement that yourself.
I believe we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. No second amendment.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on this ordinance? Member Thomas?
Just on the parking validation, I just have a question. Is that something that someone would need to contact your office and set up, or is it going to be on the website, or just assuming questions will come in?
In the perfect world, we will have it on the website so that it's seamless. Like I'm trying to, we get lots of calls about lots of things. It would be helpful to push someone to be able to do it automatically. So that will be our goal. I can't say that'll be the case right at the beginning, but that will be our goal.
Any other comments, questions? Member Spelman?
Yeah, so we took out the discussion about rental permit fees, and I understand there's going to be some further discussion about that, so I'm wondering what the status of that conversation is.
I was the one that moved on that.
Yeah, this was not one that I specifically addressed with city administration. Member Swank, did you want to add some more information?
Yeah, the reason I moved to, or talked about pulling that out, one, I thought it was going to need further discussion, and secondly, if council passes the resolution 425 this evening, I thought that was probably something that might fall under the purview of that committee.
Yes,
Okay.
as I think it should, but I wanted to raise that conversation because I was under the impression that some further conversation had been had, so thank you.
Any additional comments or questions on this ordinance?
It's now been amended, so we're back at first reading.
We are back at first reading.
I would have a question for the administration. Since we're back at first reading, if we went through the full 3-reading process, this would not be passed until the first Monday in October. And it's not an emergency measure, correct?
We don't need an emergency for this. That's your question you're asking?
Oh, until January, okay. Never mind. I didn't see that on there. Okay, good.
Thank you, Clerk Walker. Okay, moving on to Ordinance 87-25. An ordinance amending certain sections of the Athens City Code to remove gendered language and replace with gender-neutral language, introduced by all members of council. Would anyone like to talk or discuss gendered language changes? Anyone else? Thank you. Ordinance 88-25 is an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a participation agreement in the new National Opioids Purdue Direct Settlement and acknowledging that allocation and distribution of potential settlement funds will be pursuant to the governmental entity and shareholder direct settlement agreement, GESA, available at the following website, and declaring an emergency, introduced by all members of council. Okay, we now move on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 89-25 is an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a combined participation agreement in the new National Opioid Settlement secondary manufacturers with Alvogen, Amneal, Apotex, Hikma, Indivior, Mylan, Sun, and Zydus, and acknowledging that allocation and distribution of potential settlement funds will be pursuant to the governmental entity and shareholder direct settlement agreement, GESA, available at the website, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by all council members. Would anyone like to say anything else about this? Don't recall when I was sitting over there who covered this in committee. Jeff did.
Jeff said everything's okay.
Jeff said everything is okay. I think this is pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions or anything to discuss about the opioid settlement? Yes, Member Spelman.
Yeah, this is directly about it, except for the fact that we are certainly hoping that we can come up with a plan to determine how these monies will be used. This is a lot of cash and a lot of need out there, so we're looking forward to seeing how we can make some decisions about that.
I will be happy to inform council how I've been working to use that funding. And I've been thinking about this for quite some time. Number one, nothing was done when we received our first settlement allocations, which was almost 2 years ago now. And then we jumped into other settlement suits, much like the one you see on the screen, and have been successful in being part of the class action suits with the opiate settlements. We have roughly $100,000 in there, which is great at this point, because as the money continues to come in, at least we know what that revenue is looking like from a, I say this lightly, from a somewhat sustainable way, because there could be a bankrupt, someone could file bankruptcy, and then what's going to happen with that settlement money, where are we in line with getting money, but regardless. We're at the point now to where I have been working for a while now with Sean Stover over at Jobs and Family Services to work on creating a reentry program. One possibility is creating jobs, seasonal jobs within our 2 cemeteries to help to mow them, teaching people skill sets where they could use them in the future, to open up possibly their own landscaping business. But what we need is to work with an entity such as, and I'm just throwing these out there, Hopewell or Integrated Services, or someone who's already working in this space. Whereas we have this money coming in, and we can create a program that would allow for reentry for people who are recovering from substance abuse disorder, substance use disorder. So that's what we're doing right now. That's the conversations that I'm having, because it's strict in terms of what this money can be used for. We have used it for AED lockers that are in the city parks, because we know that there's activity taking place in our parks, and so to have those AED devices in a environmentally safe space in our parks is appropriate, as well as having one of our law enforcement officers go through a program that has to do with helping people who have substance use disorder. So more to come on where this money ends up going and what kind of a program recreate. One thing that I thought would be rather interesting is we now have 88 miles of mountain bike trail system up in the Baileys, and to have a trail maintenance program set up towards reentry, but it is for people who reside in the city of Athens that are working hard to go into a reentry program, or to kick, the problem, the issue that led to them using Oxycontin or whatever.
Thank
Lots
you,
of
Mayor.
great ideas out there.
There's a lot of great ideas.
Any additional comments from any elected officials? Members of the audience? Okay, moving on to ordinance 90-25. An ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids and enter into a lease agreement with the highest bidder for the former Fire Department headquarters on Columbus Road, introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Krell. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise, accept bids, and enter lease covering costs. As discussed during committee, the idea is to lease rather than sell, so that we can continue collecting revenue on this property, where selling would only be a one-time source of revenue. And with that, I would offer that the ordinance has been read for the first time.
Thank you, Member McCary. Any comments or questions? Yes, Member Swank.
What is the square footage of the available lease space?
I can get that.
Okay. And do we have any idea of what the current market rate here is in Athens for leased retail space?
We do. So at the high end, it's probably $11 a square foot for a year. Probably at the low end, it's closer to $4 a square foot per year. And that's just speaking to local folks who do that sort of thing. And so, I'm sure that there's lots of leases that, special provisions associated with what their particular need is, what the use, what the kind of facility it is. But, really what we're looking at in this case is to not incur continued costs. So we want to set conditions so that if we can make some money on it, they can go back into the city's general fund, that's great. But at a minimum, we want any costs borne by the city to be borne by the tenant.
Right, such utilities and things of that nature.
Utilities, yeah, and then in addition to the responsibility of the tenant to pay for things like utilities, property taxes, if they are generating them or causing them to have to be paid. Insurance for the operation, but like building insurance is something we'll want to continue to own and maintain ourselves, and so that lease needs to at least pay for the premium on that building insurance.
Okay. Reason I asked that, I checked into the bank down at the corner of East State Street and Townsend, and they want $6,600 a month on that triple net lease, which means you pay the taxes, you pay the utilities, you pay the insurance, you pay everything. And for the amount of space there, it seemed like an awful lot, and I have a feeling it's going to sit there for a while. But recently, we had a community forum discussion, whatever, in that North Lancaster, Columbia Avenue, Columbus Road, about what people would like to see as we're considering possibly rezoning that area. Are you looking to try to attract businesses that are in line with what the public feedback was from those forums, as opposed to another vape shop?
The city has the ability to reject any and all leases, even the highest and best lease, if it's not a use that we feel is compatible with the city of Athens. So
That's good to hear, thank you.
we're not compelled to take anyone. Now, what we can't do is skip over somebody that wants to pay a higher amount, so you just have to reject everybody. That would be the option.
Okay.
Additional elected officials, anybody else on council, members of the public? Okay, thank you, Member McCary. Moving on to ordinance 91-25, an ordinance amending the 2025 appropriation ordinance 115-24 and authorizing an interfund transfer, introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Crowell. As discussed in committee, this is about some bill paying adjustments that we'd like to make, and I'm going to read section 1 for the record. The 2025 appropriation ordinance 115-24 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $13,178 in 40 hundredths dollars to General Fund 101 for transfer, $531,229 and 81 hundredths of a dollar to Safety Services Fund 206.208. In accordance with Ordinance 73-25 for final payment to Pepper Construction Fire Headquarters, Project 346, $13,000 to General Fund Police, additional funds for vehicle repair, $105,000 to APR Debt Fund for debt payment, and $48,700 to Street Rehabilitation Fund for debt payment on the new SIB loan, and increasing the total appropriations by the same amounts. I'd also like to add a request to move, I would like to move that the rules be suspended for possible adoption of 091-25 at first reading at the recommendation and request of the auditor.
We have a motion to suspend the rules for ordinance 91-25. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you again. These are just a matter of housekeeping, clarifying our bill payment adjustments, and to complete those payments, it would be helpful to have the rules suspended tonight.
Thank you, Member McCary. Any questions or comments on suspension of the rules? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Member McCary.
Thank you. I'd like to move that we adopt ordinance 91-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 91-25. Are there comments and questions on this ordinance? City Administration, Auditor, Treasurer, members of the public. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance has been approved. Ordinance 92-25 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 01-25, authorizing the East State Street Signal Improvements Project, number 367, and authorizing the auditor to make an interfund transfer, introduced by Councilmember Spionis.
Thank you, President Crowell. So the Section 1 reads, the 2025 Appropriation Ordinance 115-24 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $220,000 to TIF Fund 593 TC 600 for transfer and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Then on Section 2, a change that is eliminated. Then the auditor is hereby authorized to make, and change to, that needs a slight adjustment there. The auditor is hereby authorized to make the following interfund transfers from TIF Fund 593 to Street Fund 220, amount $220,000. Section 3, the 2020 Appropriation Ordinance 115-25 is further amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $220,000 to Street Fund 2020 TC 500 and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. This too needs to be suspended because there's an increase in, I'm quoting here, an increase in appropriations for East State Street lighting transferred from the TIF fund. Project is already in progress, so we need to make this happen. So I move that we suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for ordinance 92-25. Comments and questions on the suspension? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Member Spionis.
Thank you. So next then, I move to adopt ordinance 92-25.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 92-25. Comments or questions? Member Swank.
Two short questions. You did say that this is already in progress,
Yes.
so I guess I look over this way. What is the timeline on this completion of this project?
It should wrap up here within the next month and a half. It really kind of is a behind the radar thing. You really don't see a lot of it
Right.
because it's a lot of guts of signal controllers being changed.
And the second question, I've asked this over the last year and a half, if we've been talking about this, are there going to be the blinking yellow left turns on the westbound East State Street there at the intersection by the Bob Evans flower bed?
It's not part of the project, but we are looking at that. And I know what you're asking for, after looking at it, more carefully. My hesitancy is basically a dual left, of a dual permitted left. Because right now we don't have that, right? We've got we have dual permitted lefts, for the green, and then we have a red the rest of the time. So allowing for a dual protected left we have with the green, and then what we're looking at is whether or not we can do dual permitted lefts. Whether we do the blinking or not, we probably would want to do that, but you got to look at conditions when you do two lanes,
right,
that you're doing permitted lefts against on a circular green, right? So that's something that we're looking at carefully.
Yeah, safety first, obviously, but I just look at what Member McCary quotes on a regular basis, our comprehensive plan and our commitment to decreasing carbon emissions. And I counted the other day 22 cars, 11 in each lane, sitting there for a very, very long period of time. While we're at it, Director Stone, at that intersection, and for those of us who live on the Far East Side, we see this quite often. There are 3 lanes there, 2 that can go left and 1 that can go straight. Yet there are 4 lights. And what we often see is people who get in the middle lane, which is in line with the left-hand, the third light over, realize they're in a left-hand lane, but they really want to go straight because they see that light in front of them. And what they do is they can zoom over in front of the people in the right-hand lane. Is there any reason there are 4 lights for 3 lanes?
There are. So when you have green ball, you have 2 indicators, and the reason is so when one burns out. So that's why you got 2. You always, even if you have 1 lane, you've got 2 lights. The green ball, that's the standard these days.
Okay.
Now for left turn lanes, you can just do 1. Now in this case, there's 2 lanes, so you have 2 lights, 1 for each lane. But that left turn lane, one protected left indicator. But for the green ball, even though you've got 1 lane that's through, you've got 2 lights. So in case one burns out, you still have a red light specifically is the main reason. Green lights are less important, but having a stop light always there if one is burned out is something that's very important from a safety perspective.
So at the corner of East State Street and May, there are 2 lights?
Yeah.
Mayor?
Councilmember Swank, I'm with you. This is a question that I asked Director Stone back in 2016, because I was befuddled by why are there 2 lights on Stimson Avenue where it is signalized on Stimson Avenue, yet 1 lane going east, 1 lane going west, and it's the same, and that was the answer. And so I understand your
Yeah,
question.
okay,
I understand-
right.
and I get your concern too.
Yeah.
But that's, under the manual of uniform traffic control devices,
2 lights.
what I refer to as mud
Yeah.
gap, it's,
Okay.
it's just the way things are.
Okay.
Any additional questions or comments on this ordinance? From the auditor's office, anyone from the public? We have let's see, where are we? We have suspended the rules, have we not? And we've had a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes and the ordinance has been approved. Ordinance 93-25 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 52-25, authorizing the 2025 Street Paving and Repairs Project, number 385, introduced by Councilmember Spielness.
Okay, thank you. This one, too, needs a suspension of the rules for the same reason. Project is already in progress. There's quite a few changes here. I'll try to get through this fairly quickly. Under Section 1, it shows $140,000 to street fund, 220 TC 500, then $330,000 to State Highway Fund 225 TC 500, and $150,000 to Wheel Tax Fund 226 TC 500, and increasing the total appropriations by said amounts. Then under Section 3, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to expend up to $620,000 as follows: $140,000 from Street Fund 220 TC 500, and $330,000 from State Highway Fund 225 TC 500, and $150,000 from Wheel Tax Fund 226 and TC 500, and increasing the total appropriations by said amounts for said paving and repairs. Okay, so as I stated, I'd like to move that we suspend the rules so that we can get this done.
Is there a second of the motion? We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for ordinance 93-25. Comments or questions on the suspension motion? Member Cloudfield?
None on the suspension.
On the suspension motion. City administration, public. All those in favor of suspending the rules for 93-25 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Member Spielness.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to move that we adopt 93-25.
Seconded?
We have a motion and a second to adopt 93-25. Comments or questions? Member Clodfelter.
I'm just curious, it's kind of refreshing to see the costs for things that the city's doing go down. Do we have an idea of why one of the costs went from $400,000 to $140,000? And why another went from up to $700,000 to $626,000? $620,000, excuse me.
Sure. So we ask for appropriations prior to getting bids. And, you know, we got a bid, and we got good bids this year. So in this case, I typically wouldn't come back to you and decrease an appropriation, because I can always use other money, you know, that's been appropriated to do something else. But we know that there's a little bit of a crunch, and it's really a cash flow issue, because all the expenses come against the street fund in the middle of the year, and where money comes into the street fund over the entire year. And so we're attempting basically to protect that fund a little bit. So in this particular ordinance, I'm asking you to reduce that appropriation, number one, to protect the street fund, and number two, to shift costs from Street Fund 220 to two other sources of revenue. One of those is the state gas tax. The other is the permissive license plate tax that's on, that are only allowed to be used. Both of those funds are only allowed to be used for capital improvements in road infrastructure. And so paving is capital improvements in road infrastructure. And so we thought these would be an appropriate way to protect that street fund, which can also be used for operational costs, personnel, that sort of thing. And so, you know, recognizing the auditor telling me, hey, we got a cash flow issue in the street fund, we took this step to try to help with that.
That's great, thank you.
Other comments or questions from city council? Anything to add from the auditor or treasurer, members of the public? We have a motion and a second to adopt 93-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance has been approved. Ordinance 94-25 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 29, Housing Regulations, Chapter 29.03, Rental Dwelling, Short-Term Rental, and Housing Permit, Section 29.03.05, Authorized Agent, and Title 1, Chapter 29.03, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
This ordinance is designed to speed up the process in contacting those in charge of rental units, all 5,600 of them in the city of Athens, in a timely manner, and addressing the point that many of these rental units are managed by people outside the city limits, outside the county, and in many cases outside the state. Two small changes. Deleting the term authorized agent and inserting a new term, designated local emergency contact, and I'll read just the first paragraph. No rental dwelling, short-term rental, or rooming house permit shall be issued or received unless the applicant designates, in addition to themselves, a designated local emergency contact for the receipt of process pursuant to this code. Said agent must be designated in writing on the application for said permit. Such designated local emergency contact must reside within the county. A fee shall be established by separate ordinance for any rental, short-term rental, or rooming house that is owned by a person residing 50 miles or more outside of the corporation limit. Apartment complexes with a local office manager are exempt. Rentals with a contract with a local rental management company are exempt. Let me read that last sentence again. Rentals with a contract with a local rental management company are exempt. We had a young man speak to us last week that manages over 300 properties, lives right here in the city. He would be exempt from this. Then finally, $25 per unit for each unit owned by a person or business residing 50 miles or more outside the corporation limit, in addition to standard rental permit fees. Ordinance has been read for the first time.
Thank you, Member Swank. Comments or questions on this ordinance? City administration, anything to add? Auditor? Members of the public?
One councilmember.
Oh, sorry, Member Spillins.
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to make sure happens with this is that it's actually not that it's actually a human and not an agency, that it's a person's name and not an agency, and someone's actual phone number rather than some agency address or phone number. So there, you can actually get a hold of somebody.
But it says that in the paragraph, said agent must be designated in writing on the application for said permit. Such designated local emergency contact must reside in the county.
No, I hear that, but one of the things we've seen in the past is a name of an organization rather than an actual human being.
It does use the word themselves, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just trying to put a fine point on that.
I'll just note that you've brought up, I think, a very good point, in that we've removed the word agent, yet we say said agent. So again, it's semantics, but we may want to make sure that
And, you know, this may
said
not need to
emergency
be,
contact.
the wording may not need to be changed here, but in terms of actually completing the documents, and that's, you know, up to you how you handle that. But I want to see a human name and not an agency or organization name.
That's fine. I mean, that'll just be my directive to the Director of Code Enforcement, but, you know, we need to have a name of a human being associated with that as the emergency contact.
Member Swank?
To Solvay's point, though, two sentences in a row. Said agent must be designated, and then the next sentence, such, and we struck agent and put designated local emergency contact. I think we should probably take out that first agent and just simply say said designated local emergency contact, so it's consistent 2 sentences in a row.
I agree with that. Somehow we missed that.
Is that typo then, as opposed to needing an amendment?
I think the intention here was that it was going to be, because we did strike out agent, that it was designated local emergency contact. So I'm going to say that it is, doesn't need an amendment because the intent there was,
Does need an amendment.
right.
Does not.
It does not, okay, I didn't hear the not, okay. Okay.
Thank you, Law Director. Member Swank?
And that one's been read for the first time.
Okay. Yes, members of the public, please approach the podium. And
What will you do about?
so we need to know your name and your address, and then,
My name is Stacy Tucker. I live at 308 and a half Highland.
thank you.
What will you do about landlords that spend half their year in Florida or some other place? Do they reside here or do they not reside here for the purposes of this ordinance? Just a thought.
It's a good question.
Service Safety Director, do you have any, what does reside within the county actually mean? I think,
I mean, what I would, in practical matter, we would say for the half of the year that you're not directly managing your own property, if that's the way that you have it set up, you'd have to have a local person that did.
Property manager.
So if it's in a rental management company's purview to manage, then it doesn't matter. But if you're managing it yourself personally and you live 6 months of the year here, then you're fine. If you move away for 6 months, then you need to pick a person to be, that would be how I would interpret what you've written in this ordinance.
Well, I'm referring specifically to the phrase, a fee shall be established by separate ordinance for any rental, yada, yada, 50 miles. That part. What does it, does that apply to?
$12.50
How does that apply to landlords that spend half their year living somewhere else?
If I may,
please,
that's a great question.
thank you for being here.
And
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking this through. Number one, having brought that up in just the previous conversation, as we roll this out, something that the code office can do is make sure that there's notice that goes out to all landlords to the fact that you have to assign a emergency contact. You know, if you are, here, but not here, or if you're away, like you said, for 6 months because you live somewhere else, that person would still have to have a permanent address, and if their permanent address is here in Athens, as opposed to their permanent address being, I'm making this up, Florida.
Yeah.
But they are here for 6 months managing things. I think that's the distinction, is where is their permanent address, and applying it in that fashion.
And sir, if I may, I mean, the reason that for the increased costs associated with this is, rental fees are established based upon the cost associated with administering the rental program. And so what we find is people who live far away, when we have to send certified mail and that sort of thing, it costs more. And so that's the reason for that additional fee. If someone was still receiving mail locally and they got their certified mail locally, and that was the owner's address was a local address, I don't think we would charge that fee.
Anything else from the audience? Very helpful, thank you. Okay, we'll be moving on to ordinance 95-25. An ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 22 West Stimson Avenue to place an in-ground sign in front of the building in the city's right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
The easiest one of the night. We talked about this in committee, simply putting a small sign about the size of a realtor sign in front of the apartment complex that is above 22 West Stimson, where the old, was it Bellavino, and for that one stop was located. The applicant filled out the paperwork, paid the fee, and has done it the right way. So this is read for the first. Oh, a reminder though, because we got one going in the city. Go down and fill out the form and pay the fee, because you may have to take down a carport.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on ordinance 95-25? Anything to add, city administration, auditor, or members of the public? Okay, we're moving on to a one reading resolution. Resolution 04-25 is a resolution in support of establishing an ad hoc one-year Affordable Housing Commission subcommittee under the Neighborhood Revitalization Committee to review rental code inspection processes to enhance efficient and effective code compliance and rental unit safety, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
Thank you, sir. We discussed this at great length last week, and your reading of the title of the resolution pretty well sums it up.
There's a couple of minor changes to what we discussed last week.
Comments? Yes, please.
So, based on comments that were made, and also because President Crowell found something that we needed to change, under Section 3, the slightly changed language is this Affordable Housing Commission one-year ad hoc subcommittee will be comprised of at least 4 members to ideally include a student renter, a code-compliant landlord property manager, an experienced renter advocate, a research consultant, a member of the city's Affordable Housing Commission, each to be appointed by the Affordable Housing Commission, plus 3 more members, ideally including a city council member selected by the council president, an Ohio University administrator appointed by the Ohio University president, and the code enforcement director or designated representative appointed by the mayor. So that's slightly more accurate in how that would need to be done. And then under Section 4, this Affordable Housing Commission one-year ad hoc subcommittee shall report to City Council on a quarterly basis with the goal of completing its objectives by October 1st, 2026, and producing a report no later than December 1st, 2026, giving a little bit of leeway there. So those are the minor changes. Otherwise, it would be the same, and happy to talk more about that.
Comments or questions about this resolution, Member Wood?
I'm really excited to see this resolution, and I'm sorry if any of my questions are redundant or were answered last week and I missed it. I think this is a great task force and issues that should be handled. I had 3 questions. I don't know who I should direct them to. One, how would the member from council be chosen, given that we will have a lot of transition? 2, was any thought given to adding in more coverage for racial and gender and other DEI, well,
You can't do that.
other types of protected groups? And thirdly, I was kind of surprised this wasn't already something that the Housing Commission did. So those are my 3 questions.
Okay, actually, it says right in our mission and bylaws that we are supposed to be doing this. So it just didn't happen yet. And in terms of the involvement from City Council, I'm here till December, so it's my understanding, based on my conversation with everybody, that I would be here till December, and then depending on how the changes occur and availability of positions within the Affordable Housing Commission, I could move into a spot there, which is up to the commission, and city council. So we'll see how that goes, but we have some good time to get started on that. And I, regarding your following question, as a former researcher, my intention is to be very careful about doing surveys of different groups of people, doing focus groups on differing groups of people, doing interviews on experts. I want to include a wide variety of the kinds of people that would need housing. So I'm going to be very intentional about making sure that we are inclusive in that process. And I want to say that we at this point, we have people competing for slots on the subcommittee. There's been a great deal of community interest in this, and I'm very excited about it. We want to do this very professionally and include. I've spoken to some professors at OU to be research consultants and include students in the process. I'd love to make this a very collaborative process with OU. I'll be meeting with the off-campus housing person, and Megan Vogel, who is in the Dean of Students office, is on the Affordable Housing Commission. So we're going to be talking about some best practices based on other town-down communities. So there's a lot of information already gathered and a lot of planning and thought that's gone into this so far.
May I ask a
Continue,
follow-up?
please.
That's great, and I'm thrilled to hear it again. Sorry if this was all covered. And when you say it was included in the comprehensive plan, do you mean that we do these things in it, or that we have a subcommittee for it?
Okay, so if you'd like me to share what it says in our, let's see here. Okay, so the ordinance that established the Affordable Housing Commission in 2017 says our mission is to review best practices, investigate community affordable housing models, and identify needs and opportunities within Athens city limits to advance decent, safe, sustainable, affordable housing for all city residents. The commission is tasked with providing advice and guidance on measures and policies that influence access to and needs within the local housing market. It further goes on to say, under powers and duties, review and make recommendations to Athens city government on policies and procedures related to housing issues, including but not limited to housing code and enforcement services. And also, we're tasked with act as a liaison between members of the community and local government. There's all kinds of other things like zoning and sidewalks and recreation and all kinds of other things that are under our purview as well. So, and also it says under the 2024 Code Office Annual Report that their goals are to continue to address any and all code violations, aggressively work towards reducing rental violations. So the concern is that, and then under the comprehensive plan published in 2020, it says 2 of the 4 priorities focus on rental issues. One is improve student rental experience and empower the code office. And further recommendations include recommendations about staffing, developing searchable online databases, and increasing housing-related collaboration with Ohio University. So there's lots of authority, and within the bylaws of the Affordable Housing Commission, it authorizes a subcommittee and consultants. So there's already the mechanism for that.
Any other comments or questions on this resolution?
President Crowell, I would move the council pass Resolution 0425.
Second. May I speak? I have a comment.
Yeah, just hold on.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on approving resolution under discussion? City Administration?
I do have a question. So council is putting forward this one reading resolution, but also relinquishing the ability to constitute who is serving on this. So it's going to be the Affordable Housing Commission that creates this ad hoc committee of Affordable Housing Commission individuals. I think you just indicated, Councilmember Spielness, that you wanted to serve on this moving forward in some capacity. So I just want to make sure that that's on the record, that council is opting to relinquish any oversight over who serves on this, unlike other boards and commissions that council has the authority to do so.
Outside of the one city council member appointed by the president, which was one of the changes to today's resolution. Thank you, Mayor. Member McCary?
I wanted to clarify that point. I was under the impression that the Commission on Disabilities appointed its own subcommittee members, and I was seeing this as equivalent, and just wanted to see if anyone had a different understanding.
I don't think it was the disability, it was the pedestrian accessibility committee, I think, because that committee grew.
That's correct.
And
It wasn't something directly under the Commission on Disabilities.
I was referring to the Accessibility and Advocacy Subcommittee under the Commission on Disabilities and the Outreach Committee. I just believe those are not people who are necessarily appointed by council. They're volunteers. Some members of the commission are on those subcommittees, but I believe they're broader than that. Is that your understanding as well?
Sure, that's different. I mean, they have, someone who's a group that is interested in advocacy. They have a group that's interested in
Communications.
education. There's a group that does nothing but the Athena Award work to find individuals who want to be nominated or self-nominating to receive that award. This is different than that.
Well, I'd like to clarify that
Member Spielness?
thank you, I'm sorry. 3 out of the 7 members one would be appointed by the city council, the president of city council, which I've already been appointed. So anyway, and Ohio University.
Well, Member Spielness, nobody has been selected for this. I haven't even received the authorization to do this until this resolution has been passed.
Well, I mean,
I have not selected anybody for this
I'm already a
position.
member of it, so I ran that by Lisa. So anyway, and then Ohio University Administrator appointed by Ohio University President, and of course, a member of the Code Enforcement Office would be an important part of this. So that's 4 that we would be selecting, and those would be people who are stakeholders in the community.
Mayor?
Thank you. So if I'm reading this correctly, it says the code enforcement director or a designated representative appointed by me.
Right.
I could tell someone from the street crew to serve on this, or, I mean, my designee is whomever I find who wants to serve on this.
So why would you want to do that?
Because that's how this reads.
But
My authority is to appoint anybody as a designee. I could sit there and say, tag Director Stone, you're it. It's just the reality.
Member Swank?
So I went back to what I was referencing, and I was wrong, because the task force for pedestrian accessibility and bicycle task force says the task force consists of 9 members, including 8 voting members, each subject to the approval of city council. So I guess I would ask Member Thomas to move back just a little bit so I can talk to the law director down there. Are we running into any potential, I had not thought of this till it was brought up this evening, any potential, even though this is an advisory committee, any legal issues, or, because they're going to make some recommendations, and I'm sure they're going to make some great ones, but considering this is the only one, is that a possible problem?
Well, this is going to be an ad hoc subcommittee that doesn't really have any voting power, and according to Section 4, they're going to report on a quarterly basis with the goal of completion. So they don't have any additional power, just to serve as an ad hoc committee to gather information.
Well, that's kind of what the Pedestrian Accessibility Bicycle Task Force is, too. Yet, for some reason, we have them being appointed by city council.
And that would be city council's decision, as the mayor said, is city council giving up its authority here to make the appointments.
I'll just say that procedurally, quickly here, I don't believe city council approves the people on the bicycle task force, right? It hasn't been my role to go find those 8 individuals, ask them if they will serve, and then officially appoint them. That's still being done within the, those come to council and then council approves them. I don't know if that's something that we want to do for this as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because this just says each to be appointed by the Affordable Housing Commission. Are you suggesting that perhaps we say and confirmed by council?
I have no problem with that, by the way. So if you want to make that
Member Wood?
word change.
I assume the mayor is alluding to our earlier fun discussions this year about appointing representatives, and I think it's a KG one. And I think it could be, obviously it wasn't here for the first discussion. Folks can do what they like. You could say maybe designated representative, member of City of Athens staff or something, or pending approval by council. But I appreciate the point.
Member Spielman, did you have something else to add? I'm sorry, Member Thomas.
I would echo Member Wood. And I think if we just added and approved by members of council to section 3 to make it uniform across the other commissions that we have, that probably answers the mayor's point
Member
or
Swank?
addresses it.
So I would offer the following amendment. I'm going to start reading in mid-sentence. Or a research consultant and a member of Athens, member of the city's Affordable Housing Commission, each to be recommended or appointed. Silva, you've worked on this longer than anybody.
I'm fine with recommended.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, each to be recommended, so strike the word appointed, each to be recommended by the Affordable Housing Commission and approved by council.
We have a motion on the table to amend the resolution.
What about the remainder of that?
That is the purview, the way this reads, the purview of the president of council. We can't dictate to Ohio University who they appoint, and we would be stepping out of our legislative lane by approving or not approving who the mayor.
Okay, I understand.
Those are taken care of, I think, administratively.
yep.
So we have a motion on the table to amend the resolution with that language. Yes, Member Thomas?
Not to belabor it, but I think it needs to go at the very end because we did go through these discussions earlier in the year, and the point was that we did want to have approval over who the mayor, the OU, and council president submitted or recommended or appointed. If we want it to be uniform, I don't personally have a care either way, but I think that is the point of, we did demand to have approval over the mayor's appointees earlier in the year. It seems like if we don't do it now, it's a little astray of what we said earlier in the year. If you look at all the other commissions.
Yes and
Member Swank?
yeah, yes and no. The issue wasn't the appointment; it was the definition of reappointment. So it's a little bit different. And this is ad hoc. This is a one-shot deal. They're going to wrap it up in 12 to 14 months. I just hate getting into the part down here of dictating what of council as a whole, dictating what the president of council power would be. And then same with Ohio University, another political entity in and of itself, and then the chief executive or the chief administrator of the city. If we were going to codify this for all time, I think we could, that might be a good discussion topic, but this is quick and easy and hopefully a good solution in 12 to 14 months.
Mayor, do you have something to add? No? So we have an amendment on the table to insert the language after Affordable Housing Commission, period, or Affordable Housing Commission to be approved, to be appointed by council, to be approved by council?
Yeah. Recommended by the Affordable Housing Commission and approved by council.
So that is the amendment on the table, taking to mind good points that Member Thomas has said. Any comments or questions on that amendment?
I don't think there's been a second.
Anything to add? Oh, is there a second of Member Swank's amendment?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments on that amendment, city administration, law director, anybody in the public? And we're going to get to you, just, sorry, I'll let you know, don't forget. I won't forget you. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, the resolution has been amended, and so this is a one reading resolution, so we've read it for one time. We're back to any other amendments from city council on this resolution, back to the mayor or the elected officials to say anything. And now we are for members of the public. Please come forward and let us know your
You want to have a
thoughts.
motion and second first, and then have the discussion.
We did.
To approve.
To approve.
I did that.
We did that for the amendment.
No, we did that before that.
Oh, we did that at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, yes, please. Thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
I am still Stacy Tucker, 308 and a half Highland. So I welcome the rental code inspection process as being reconsidered. I was shocked to learn about them when I moved here 11 years ago. I had never heard of a municipality annually inspecting occupied rentals. It seemed to me very intrusive. And it has indeed proven to be just as bad as I imagined. It's a very timely subject for me. My own home was subject to code inspection just a few weeks ago. And due to circumstances in my life, I've been caregiving for someone. I'm sleeping at odd times. And I was asleep when the code inspection happened. And the code inspector came right into my bedroom and tested the smoke alarm. He also opened a little closet. I think maybe in retrospect, he wondered if there was a furnace inside it or something. But either way, there were personal items in there that are none of his business. This is, not okay for many obvious reasons. And the city is like, nothing untoward happened, but, that's lawsuit territory, guys. So, and I've had in the past inspectors make comments about the contents or condition of my home that were really none of their business. It just, it does need review, and they need some more guidelines maybe. I don't know. He knew that I was in there. My housemate made it clear, and I had also told the landlord I'm not going to be awake at that time. And the fact that he felt okay, like, what was he thinking? If only for his own sake. Like, he was opening himself up to a lot of risk doing that. So, and there seems to be no rapport at all between tenants and the code inspection office, which seems odd to me, since the tenants are the people they're supposed to be protecting and not the landlords. I would think that it would be useful for the code office to have a rapport with tenants so that we could report issues and maybe schedule their inspections at a time that's best for everyone and maybe with a little more notice. May I ask, have any of you been subject to experience one of these code inspections as a tenant? Yeah, how did you find it?
I will just say that I'm a renter, and I found the inspections appropriate in my instance because our property manager is able to call and confirm appropriate time. So I apologize that it sounds like some of the procedural things, I'm not clear on your situation, but may not have happened.
Well, we generally get 48 hours notice, which is something, but it's not the best. And there's a very narrow window during which they can come. They don't seem to work after 3 o'clock.
It's okay, you may continue.
You know, they can come in the morning, but my housemate isn't available in the morning. It's a terrible time for him. He's disabled and cannot be up at that early. So and sometimes I'm out of town. Sometimes we're both out of town. So I welcome this, and I hope that good things come of it. But I would also ask that a non-student renter be included in the committee for two reasons. Families and students have different needs and experiences, and also because students at most would experience maybe 2 code inspections. They spend the first 2 years on campus by obligation. They rent 2 years. Their property might not even get inspected 1 year, and if they're not home, it's going to happen whether they're there or not. So they may experience 0 code inspections during their time as a student renter here. As a person who has lived here over a decade, I've experienced many. So, and that's a very different experience than what a student might find. So, anyway.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your
Yeah,
comments.
I think that's that's it, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Guidarelli. I live at 126 West Union Street. I'm here to speak in favor of the amendment. I've lived in Athens for 10 years. The first 2 were in the dorms when I was an OU student, and then various rental properties throughout the city in the 8 years ever since, and with various different landlords, some of which have been really bad, some of which have been really good. So obviously I've seen kind of both ends of the spectrum, and I have perspective on some of the things that I think need to change. So I think that this subcommittee will do a lot to kind of help standardize a lot of the code enforcement that a lot of times I feel is lacking. I think there's certain properties that definitely are not up to code and have not been up to code for years and years, if not decades, and I think that hopefully this will help with that. I'm also a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Task Force that we were talking about earlier, so I just wanted to add, as a procedural thing, if this does get passed and City Council has to confirm these people, I ask that is actually prioritized in council meetings, because I was appointed to the Bicycle Task Force unanimously by members of the council, or by members of the subcommittee, including Micah McCary, last September. So I've been on it for a year, and as far as I know, City Council has never actually approved my confirmation onto that task force, because we just haven't taken the time to go through the procedure of it. The city website's still not updated with all the new members and everything like that. So especially if there are members that drop and add on, it would just be something that hopefully can come up more quickly in a council meeting. It doesn't, it's not something that takes a ton of time or anything like that. So just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Wood?
Yeah, two things. One, just to Stacy, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm your neighbor.
It's fine, but it was all fine, but why did you think that was okay?
Sure.
Anyway, go ahead.
And I'll follow up with you after. You're my neighbor, and I'm your representative, so I'll follow up with you after about talking to you. I think I found Director Riggs to be excellent in everything. I think the administration can speak to it as well. I think he would be disappointed in his staff, and I'm sure he'll be happy to talk to you about it. Administration can certainly speak to it, but I'll follow up with you. I would also like to offer an amendment to strike student from the renter, because I think that's a great point that you made. I think students, are one subgroup. There's a wide swath of renters, so I do think that would be an appropriate amendment.
I would second that.
Law Director, we can go back, I assume? We haven't voted
Well,
yet?
we can, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Member Clotfield, you want to add something?
I think that might be one good approach to the whole renter question, but I wonder if there's room on the ad hoc subcommittee to just have a student renter and a non-student renter, because I do think both of those voices would be valuable.
Well, when I spoke with our law director, she advised me that I should be careful about how many people are on it, and it's better to have 7 than 8 because of voting numbers, I guess. And the intention of this was there were so many student voters, so many student renters, that I thought it would be a good idea to include them. But I just really want to emphasize that we're going to have, our plan is to have focus groups for student renters, focus groups for regular renters, and then maybe some focus groups for other, renters with disabilities, et cetera. So we're really inclusive. So just because they're not on the committee, the subcommittee, doesn't mean that they're not going to be represented. So if you really want to take off renter, it doesn't matter to me, although I do have a renter already chosen, or not chosen, wants to do it. So, anyway.
There is a motion to amend by removing the word student before renter. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment on the table? Member Swank?
The reason I seconded that is because I think we grossly underestimate the number of people in Athens who rent, as the lady spoke this evening, and automatically assumed it's all students. Yeah, there are 5,600 rental properties in this town, but even on the Far East Side, which many people assume are owner-occupied homes, are quite a few people that rent. My former next-door neighbor rented, was paying $1,700 a month, more than a mortgage would have been. But because of interest rates today and the requirement on a $200,000 house to put 10 or 20% down, there are people that don't have $20,000 or $40,000 laying around to do that. So I think leaving a wide open renter and then having people apply for this and picking the most representative and contributing people possible would be a proper way to go, rather than just limiting it to a student.
Any other comments or questions on the amendment on the table? Anything to add from the auditor, city? Yes, please.
I will say, students and non-students tend to rent very different types of properties in different, there's not that many students in my neighborhood, but there are many renters. And the Far East, the Near East Side, you said, there are a lot of renters there. Very few of them are students, and they're very different types of properties. I don't know. I canvassed a few years ago during an election, and I was appalled at some of what I saw. And that was just the outside of these houses. But that was in blocks that are full of students. So I see the purpose in choosing a student renter. They seem to see the worst of it, I think. And because they are younger and perhaps considered more naive, they are, I think, more taken advantage of. An older renter might be more aware of their rights and feel more confident about asserting themselves. But that's another reason I think that the code inspection office needs to have a better rapport with tenants so that they can be made to understand what their options are when their landlord is not doing their job. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the table to amend by removing the word student. Any final comments or questions from council? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The resolution has been amended. Now, we already have a motion on the floor to adopt this resolution and a second. So I'll go back to City Council. Any comments or questions on the amendment, on the motion to adopt this resolution? Back to City Administration. Mayor?
Just a question, because it struck me a comment that was made a little bit ago, and so I'm just going to ask it. Councilor Spielis, have people under the different categories that are here outside of the university and my administration, have there already been people identified to serve in these positions?
There have been people who volunteered to be considered.
When you just said a moment ago that you already had a student in mind and that was the person who was going to serve. And so
I didn't
that's why
say
I'm
that was the
asking
person who was going to
question, just
serve.
see
I'm saying
other-
that
other
those are people
pre-selections have
who,
already taken place.
no, those are people who have volunteered, and I've told them that we are, especially since some slots, there's more than one, that we would have to come up with a plan to determine who would be the best fit. So there's no predetermination.
Any additional comments? Members of the public? All those in favor of adopting this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The resolution has been adopted. We now move on to announcements and other business. Are there any announcements or other business from City Council or City Administration? Then we move on to an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. If you have anything that has not been covered this evening, you'd like to come forward, we'd love to hear from you. Please. Just let us know your name and your address on Morris Avenue and your...
Hi, my name is Jenny Klein. I live at 71 Morris Avenue. And I am just concerned about the intersection at East State and Stimson Avenue. That is a very well-traveled path by pedestrians, both to get to the university, me personally, twice a day, and also by middle school kids to get uptown to the middle school. And twice over the last 12 months, it was in about a 2-month period, people who were turning left there, and I think I sent an email, I sent it to Andrew Chicky, and then he forwarded it to you, so hopefully this sounds kind of familiar, but twice while I was there, people who were turning left did not yield to the pedestrians, even though we had fully the walk sign, and I was walking with my now 14-year-old. And so I would just like the first time I considered it like, I just thought it was an anomaly. Actually, I was by myself the first time, and the car came so close that I like pushed off of the hood, and then he finally saw me. I was like pretty shaken. I sat down on I made it across the street, sat down for a second. A friend of mine, I called her and she came and got me and like drove me from State and Stimson to Morris Avenue, which is kind of silly. But I just was like pretty upset because I had almost gotten hit by a car. And then the second time I was with my 14-year-old, and the nurse at the middle school, Nurse Molly, saw it happen, and she was like, oh my gosh, that was completely ridiculous. The guy just totally cut us off. And so I don't know all the ins and outs of traffic safety and how to solve something like that. And I'm a one-off kind of like, oh, that was strange the first time. But the second time I was like, okay, somebody should really do something. So I don't know what that is, but I'm hoping that it resonates with you and it makes some sort of sense to you about whatever you have to do to make it safer at that intersection. I would really appreciate it as someone who crosses it at least twice a day. Thanks. And I'll be there again in about 15 minutes.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate you letting us know. Any other citizens like to speak on any items not on our agenda this evening? Okay, I will let the audience know that we will be entering into an executive session. So in a few minutes, the door, we'll answer any questions. If the press in attendance would like to ask any questions, we'll go 5 minutes. Does that sound right, Clerk Walker? And we will shut the door at 9:08 and go into executive session. After executive session, we will open the door for anybody who wishes to come back before we adjourn. And so I need a motion to enter into executive session. Member Swank?
President Crowell, I move that council move into an executive session to consider matters of compensation of a public official and to prepare for collective bargaining. And said executive session include the auditor, the treasurer, and members of the administration, and all members of council.
And the law director with?
Oh, and the law director, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
She's hiding down there, yes.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. Member Spielness?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Swank?
Aye.
McCary?
Aye.
Clodfelter?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
We will enter into executive session at 9:09. Thank you. Thank you.